Hi, I'm Jeff Gonzalez, president of Trident Concepts, and today I'd like to talk to you about stockpiling ammunition. So the first thing I talk about is usually when we say the term stockpile, people freak out. The first thing I want to deal with is not to panic, because when we talk about stockpiling, we're not talking about investing in hundreds of thousands of rounds. We're not even really talking about investing in tens of thousands of rounds. What we're talking about is being able to realistically divide your attention in two different categories. The first is going to be defensive ammunition, and then the second is going to be training ammunition. So given the current environmental conditions that we're dealing with, I would recommend that you focus on the defensive side of the house. So let's first define what is a standard loadout. So if you were to think about your defensive carry firearm, whether that's your carry gun or whether that's your home defense gun, your defensive firearms, what is the standard loadout that you have for them? Is it one magazine? Is it two magazines? I don't know. But what I typically will tell people is that you want to make sure that you have a standard loadout and then you have a second loadout to restock your original standard loadout. So if, let's just play with numbers, 25 is your standard loadout, then you would have basically 50. Now, what does that really mean? That means that throughout the year, as you're handling the firearm, as you're loading the firearm, as you're unloading the firearm, you're going to see some wear and tear on that ammunition. It's not going to last forever. You're going to have to recognize that it's a consumable product and you're going to have to replace it over time. So within the span of about 12 months, the extra 25 rounds get backfilled into your magazines so that you can keep everything, number one, safe and functional, so that when you pull the trigger, it goes bang. So after that, that's your standard loadout right there, 50 rounds. Okay, so what do I want to have as far as a stockpile of defensive ammunition? Well, if you were to think about going through 50 rounds per year, what I might suggest is probably about 3 to 5 years worth of ammunition. So in this case, if 50 rounds is my yearly quota, 3 years would be 150, and 5 years would be 250. So that can help you when you're looking for ammunition, right? Now, what I also tell people right now is it doesn't really matter what brand you go with. What matters is that you're picking from one of the quality manufacturers of premium defensive ammunition. And as long as you're doing that, you're good. I would encourage you to stick with one particular brand and product and to function test that in the beginning, which is about another 50 rounds. But after that, you can feel pretty comfortable that as long as you just kind of keep stocking up on that, you'll be good. Now, obviously, that 5-year stockpile is achievable one of two ways: an initial bulk purchase or just purchasing over time. It's up to you. Obviously, bulk purchasing more expensive and availability can be an issue. So if you can just start to buy a box of ammo here and there, you'll eventually increase your stockpile for your defensive ammunition. One of the other things that I tell people is keep that defensive ammunition in a cool, dry place. So make sure that you have the the longevity of the ammunition without the environmental, diminishing through heat and pressure and humidity. Now, that's defensive ammunition. Let's talk about training ammunition. One of the things that I tell people is that, yes, you're going to need to train even during these types of crazy time periods. You can't just rely on your past training. You're going to need to maintain that training. So we might need to look at two levels. One is my normal professional development that I do when I'm not dealing with a pandemic, which could be, probably maybe, I would say maybe 200 to maybe 500 rounds a month. Obviously, that's on the upper level. That's what I typically do. Now, during the pandemic, I have changed that to just 100 rounds a month. So if I were to forecast this out, planning for holidays, planning for maybe injuries and illnesses, maybe I get 10 months of good training. All right, so that's 1,000 rounds right there if I do my current loadout. So what we want to try to do is use that same philosophy. I want to stockpile for anywhere from a 3 to 5 year range. So if I plan for 1,000 rounds during this time period, then that means I need to purchase probably 3 cases of ammo. And again, same philosophy, purchase what you can. At this point, you don't have to be quite as, I guess the word I'm looking for, quite as picky about the training ammunition. As long as it's from a reputable manufacturer, I think you're going to be okay. I do caution you right now on purchasing ammunition that is remanufactured. Just be very careful about that, because there's a lot of people that are building or producing reloaded ammunition that might not have the same quality control that could eventually result in some bigger issues down the road. So be that as it may, you got to do what you got to do. If I go back to my normal training, which is anywhere from 200 to 500 rounds in a month, then I'm using that same 10-month template. Well, now I'm looking at 2,000 to 5,000 in a year. And if I were to project out 3 years, now you can see where that adds up. So that's where stockpiling really becomes valuable, is from a training perspective, where I need to keep my training, my sustainment training going, so that if I'm called upon to use my defensive skills, I know that I have good skills. So there's a lot of other things that you might want to consider with regards to your training ammunition, which is making sure that you keep that secure, because now we're talking about a lot of cases. We're talking about anywhere from 3 to 5 to up to 10, 15 cases, and that can get a little bit complicated. So you're going to need to put some thought into, how do I store this? The need to store it with the same cool, dry climate that you store your defensive ammunition may not be quite as important, because if it doesn't go bang due to the fact that it's been out in a hot environment or humid environment, it's training ammunition. I'm not quite as upset about it. But my defensive ammunition, I can't afford that. So these are just some thoughts to think about when it comes to stockpiling ammunition. If you have questions or comments, or you have a different philosophy, I'd love to hear that. Please feel free to post it down below. Until then, take care and stay safe.